Greed. It's a word we throw around all the time. But what is it really? Is it just a moral failing, a simple flaw in someone's character? Or is it something way deeper, something kind of hardwired into our brains and then exploited by the world we live in? Okay, let's get into it. Let's unpack the powerful and often hidden forces behind that endless desire for more.
I mean, just listen to this. It's a pretty stark admission from someone who was right at the heart of the global financial machine. A former Swiss banker who, when he looked back, realized the whole system he was part of was, and these are his words, a criminal organization. You see, this wasn't some abstract concept for him. It was a personal crisis. It's that moment when a big idea like greed suddenly gets a human face. And his story, it just forces you to ask this really fundamental question, right? How does a person who has a moral compass, someone who thinks of themselves as a good person, end up feeling, well, blinded by the dollar signs? To figure that out, we've got to look at this crazy collision between our ancient biology and our very modern world. So let's start right there with that confession. It's just such a powerful look at how a moral compass can get completely lost in the fog. And look, this isn't just a story about banking. It's really a window into the seductive power of wealth and that slow, almost invisible erosion of a person's own ethical lines in the sand. Can you imagine that? Watching your own values, the things you thought defined you, just slowly fade into the background? That's exactly what he described. The promise of the next big bonus, the next promotion. The sheer scale of the money involved just started to feel more real, more important than the principles he used to believe in. His story is the perfect gateway to understanding the machine that's driving this feeling. So now let's pivot. Let's go from that one personal story to the universal machine that's humming away inside all of our heads, the brain's reward system. Because you see, what that banker felt, that wasn't unique to him. It was the result of this incredibly powerful biological process that can affect any one of us. And at the very heart of that system is something called the dopamine loop. Now, we often hear dopamine called the pleasure molecule, but that's not quite right. It's really more about motivation, about anticipation. It's the chemical in your brain that says, hey, that thing you just did, that was good. Let's do it again. And once it gets going, it creates this powerful, self-perpetuating loop. So here's how it works. It's pretty simple. You see a cue, could be the promise of a bonus, a shiny new car, even just a notification on your phone. Then you take an action to get it. And when you do, boom, you get a little hit of dopamine. It feels good. Your brain makes a note of that and says, let's do that again. Now, what's fascinating, and honestly a little terrifying, is the research behind this. Scientists watched rats in a lab press a lever for a dopamine reward, and they just keep pressing it over and over again, ignoring food, ignoring water, until they literally died of exhaustion. It's that powerful. And this is the absolute key takeaway here. Greed hijacks this reward system in the exact same way a powerful drug does. The pattern is identical. The more you get, the more your brain gets used to it, and the more you need to get that same rewarding feeling. You build up a tolerance, and that tolerance creates an absolutely insatiable hunger. Okay, so we've got this ancient, powerful machine in our heads. But that machine, it doesn't just operate in a vacuum, right? It operates inside a system that we've built all around ourselves. A system that knows exactly which buttons to push and which levers to pull. We've basically constructed our entire world around this biological wiring. Think about it. Career ladders, social media likes, credit scores. We've created this incredibly complex system of expectations and goals that taps directly into that dopamine loop. We've effectively built a cage for ourselves. But see, this isn't some grim, rusty old cage. No. It's gilded, it's shiny, it's attractive, it's filled with all these rewards. It's the promise of luxury, of status, of happiness. And that's the genius of the trap, isn't it? The cage is so beautiful that half the time, we don't even realize we're in it. So, what are the bars of this gilded cage made of? Well, for one, there's this deep, often unconscious fear of our own mortality, an anxiety that our consumer culture tells us we can soothe by buying more stuff. Then there's that biological hunger for status. Our brains are literally wired to seek social standing. And in our society, how do we measure status? Well, often by what we own. All of this just feels an endless chase for more, locking us into that dopamine loop on a massive societal scale. So what happens when you combine our internal biology with this external system we've built? You get a game that is almost impossible to win. You get an insatiable hunger. And the result is this totally strange, paradoxical state. You can have everything you're told you're supposed to want: the car, the house, the money, and yet you feel this persistent, nagging emptiness, a feeling of being evasively unhappy. The happiness you were promised, it's always just around the next corner, with the next purchase or the next promotion, but you never quite get there. And here's the real kicker. Here's why you can't win. The game is rigged. Status isn't a fixed thing. It's all relative. You're not just measuring what you have, you're measuring it against what other people have. So no matter how much you get, there's always going to be someone with more. The goalposts are constantly moving. This hunger is, by its very nature, biologically insatiable. Which brings us to the final and, I think, most provocative question. Because this isn't really about bankers or billionaires, it's about all of us living inside the system. If the cage is comfortable and beautiful, and it's full of all these shiny rewards that our brains are literally hardwired to crave, why would we ever even think about trying to find a way out?